Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to connect and use a DHT11 temperature and humidity sensor with the quantum system. So let's get started. So this is a DHT11 temperature and humidity sensor. It's a pretty simple component to use. It's found in most starter kits, including our component kit, which I'll link in the video description below. But as you can see on the bottom, there's 4 pins. On the very left is the VCC pin for power. Then next to that is the signal pin. And then the one to the right of that one is a pin that's not used, so you won't be connecting that to your circuit. And then the one on the very right is the ground pin. So that's pretty much it for the DHT11. Let's go ahead and connect this to our builder base and then do the rest of the setup. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a breadboard, a builder base, and then 3 male-to-male jumper wires here. First thing I'm going to do is take the sensor. I'm going to connect it to the breadboard just like this, where it's facing this direction. And then that way I can keep track of the pins. The very left is VCC, then there's the signal, the not used pin, and then ground. So the first jumper wire I'm going to attach is the VCC pin. It goes to the very left pin of the DHT11. Then the next one, I'm going to take this green male-to-male jumper wire, connect it right next to the VCC wire, and then I'm going to skip the gap for that not used pin, and then I'm going to go to the very last pin on the right, and then I'm going to connect that to a black male-to-male jumper wire for our ground. And now once you have that set up, let's go ahead and connect it to the builder base. I'm going to take the ground wire, then I'm going to connect that to a ground terminal on the builder base. I'm going to take our signal pin, and just to make it look cleaner, I'm going to connect it to GP6 on the builder base, since it's on the right side. And then next, I'm going to take the VCC wire and connect that to 3.3 volts on the builder base. Just like that. So now that's our circuit, let's go ahead and power on our builder base and do the rest of the setup on our Q server. All right. Now that we're on our Q server, first thing we want to do is pair that builder base, which we attached the DHT11 to. So let's go over to the clients tab, and then go to the unpaired tab, and then pair that builder base. Once your client is paired, go ahead and click the setup button and give the builder base a name. I'll just name this one DHT11, and then just pick a location. And there we go. Now that's paired, let's go ahead and go to our firmware builder and create the firmware file. So go to the firmware tab on the left there, click create new. I'm just going to name this file DHT11. And now we're going to add the hardware for it. So it's only one specific piece of hardware that we connected to the builder base. However, we have to add 2 different types of hardware to the firmware file. So the first one we're going to add is the temperature sensor. There we go. And then I'll just name this temperature, then click add hardware. And then now the next one we have to add is humidity. So there we go, add humidity. And I'm going to name it humidity as well. This is because the DHT11 gives both temperature and humidity readings, so we have to add one of each to the firmware file in order to collect that data correctly. So for the first one, the temperature, we're going to configure that one. Go ahead and click the drop down. For driver, we're going to select DHT11. And then for the pin, we're going to select GP6 because that's where I attached the signal wire to. And then for resolution, we're going to keep it at 1. Basically what the resolution does is it notifies the system every time there's a change within a certain value. You can change it between 0 and 9. So every time it changes 1 degrees Fahrenheit, it's going to notify the system and make the change. If you change the resolution to 0, it's going to notify the system whenever the value changes. But if you change it to 9, it'll be every 9 degrees Fahrenheit is when it'll notify the system and refresh everything for you. But I like to keep it at 1, so we're going to keep it that way. And then for humidity, we're going to select driver, and again, we're going to select DHT11. For the pin, it's going to be the same pin because that's the only signal wire we have connected to the builder base. So select GP6, and resolution, I'm going to keep it where it changes every 1%. So once that's set up, go ahead and click save. And now we're going to upload this to our DHT11 builder base. Go ahead and select it. Now we're going to click upload. So while that uploads, we're going to create our app. Go over to the apps tab, click create new. I will name this DHT11. And now that we're on our canvas, the first thing we want to do is bring out the objects for our DHT11. Just like we did for the firmware file, we're going to have to add both a temperature and humidity hardware object. So here's the temperature one, and now we are going to add a humidity one. There we go. And once we do this, we need to find a way to read the data that these objects are going to give us. So there's a couple ways to do it. The first one I'll show you is you're just going to be able to read it off your dashboard with a text interface object. So let's bring a couple of those out. We'll need one for each object. So there's one. There's the second one. And now I want to label these and name all these objects correctly. So the first thing I want to do is name the interface objects. So this one I'll just name temperature. I'm also going to want to label it temperature because I'll see that in the dashboard and then I'll know which data I'm reading. So type that in, click Save Properties, and then I'll do the same for humidity. And click Save. And then for the mapping process afterwards, I want to give these objects a name as well. So this one I'm going to name temperature. And then this one, humidity. And click Save. Once we do that, we can drag a line from the temperature hardware object to the import of the text object that we set for the temperature. And we'll do the same for humidity. And that's it. This app will allow us to read the temperature and humidity sensor data off our dashboard through the text interface objects here. So let's go ahead and click Save App. And then click Return to My Apps. And then let's go ahead and click that Play button. Now let's map those objects to our builder base with the firmware files. So for the humidity one, we're going to select that DHT11 builder base with the humidity hardware in the firmware file. Select that. And then for temperature, we'll do the same thing and click Done. And then once you get the green check marks, go ahead and click Save and Run. And now our app is running. So let's go over to our dashboard. And from there, we'll select the DHT11. You can see here we got our temperature, which we labeled that object, and then the other one that we labeled humidity here, and then the readings for it. So for the temperature, it's already giving us a reading at 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity, it hasn't given us one yet because, again, the resolution's at 1. So once it changes 1%, I will be able to see the data from it. So if I just bring this sensor here and just blow on it, in a sec, we should be able to see the humidity readings. And there you go. Now you can see that the humidity is at 66%. So that's one basic way that we can gather the readings from the DHT11 sensor. And that's just one way you can create an app with the DHT11 and gather readings from it. However, we can go one step further here. What I can do is have the readings from this get displayed on our dashboard as well as this LCD display. I'm just going to rearrange here. There you go. So let's go back to our Q server and make those edits and then go from there. So back on our Q server, I've paired another builder base for the LCD, uploaded the correct firmware file for it. I'll have a link in the video description below that will show you how to set up the LCD display if you want to do that. But there it is. So let's go back to that DHT11 app we did. Let's just stop it for now. Go back to edit. And we're back here. We'll still keep these text interface objects so we can get the readings on our dashboard still. However, we want it to display on the LCD as well. So first thing I'm going to do is pull out a LCD hardware object. There we go. I'm going to do a little bit of rearranging. Now the next thing we need to do is merge the two different strings here so it sends it in one message to the LCD display. So we're going to have to add a string merge code object here. Let's go ahead and bring it in. Basically what this object will do is merge up to 4 different strings that you attach here and then combine it and send it to a display or a text field or however else you decide to use it. I'll add a link to our object reference on the string merge in the video description below so you can check that out as well. But for now, let's go ahead and add these together. So the first string I want it to say is temperature, because if I don't do that, first thing it's going to do is send in the data from the temperature, which is just going to be a number. And we don't want that. We want it to be a little bit more organized. So string A, we're going to type in temp and then colon and then click Save Properties. For string B here, we're going to drag in that temperature data. So go ahead and connect it there. And then we don't have to change anything there. And then string C, this is where we want it to say humidity and then colon. And then we're going to do one extra change later, but I'm going to show you why, what happens first before we change it. But anyways, type in humidity and colon, click save properties. And then for string D, we're going to pull in that humidity data. And then now we can take this and then send it to the display port on the LCD hardware object as well as the string port. And if you're not sure why I did this, go ahead and check out the LCD video, which I'll link in the video description below as well. That kind of explains why you have to do it this way. And then lastly, we're just going to give this hardware object a name. So we're going to name it LCD. So it'll show up in the mapping process. We'll click Save Properties. All right, now we'll save our app. We'll go to Return to My Apps, and we're going to click that play button. When I do that, we're going to have to map that new LCD hardware object. So we're going to map that to the LCD builder base with the LCD firmware file I created, and then click Done. Once I do that, I can click Save and Run. And then now when I go to my dashboard and go to DHT11 app, it'll still give us the same data in the text field as we set up before, but now we also want it to show up on this LCD display. As you can see on the display, what happens is it's a little bit messed up here. We want the temperature readings on the top line, and then we want the humidity on the bottom line. Remember, this is a 2x16 display. One little square is per character. So sometimes you have to add in a couple spaces or so to make sure it lines up correctly. So as you can see here, the beginning of humidity begins at the top there, HU. We want to fill those two spaces before it starts saying humidity. So I'm going to show you a little trick on how to do that. So let's go ahead and go back to your Q server. Go back to the app, and then we're just going to stop it real quick. And then we're going to go to Edit. And now where it says string C, where we typed in humidity colon, what you can do is add in, we want to fill in those two spaces. So I'm going to hit the space bar twice to fill it in. And then go ahead and click Save Properties. And then save your app. And then now I'm going to run the app again. Now, if you look at the LCD display, you can see it's laid out a little bit more cleanly. We have the temperature at the top, 82.4 degrees Fahrenheit, which if we look at the dashboard, it's showing the same data. And then for humidity, 50%. And there you go. That's pretty much how you use the DHT11 and how you can set up to read the data. There's a bunch of different ways to use it as well. You can also have it where it triggers certain devices based on temperature readings or humidity readings. We've used this DHT11 before in a project where we had it give us the temperature and humidity readings. And we had it set up where if it exceeded a certain temperature, we had a different builder base with an IR bug, and then that will turn on an IR fan to start cooling off a room. So there's a bunch of different possibilities. I'm excited to see what you guys decide to do with this. But anyways, this is a quick and simple demonstration on the DHT11 and some of the possibilities. So that's pretty much it on setting up the DHT11 with the quantum system. There's plenty of different applications for this, so make sure you check out those links in the video description below so you can see some of the different projects we've already used it for. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.